Welcome to Cardinals Cover 2 with Craig Grialou and Mike Jurecki. Cardinals Cover 2 is brought to you by Arizona Cardinals Podcasts. Visit azcardinals.com/podcasts. From Cardinals headquarters, here's Craig Grialou and Mike Jurecki.
Well, welcome to one of the more busier weeks in an NFL calendar year. 2 games in 5 days if you're the Arizona Cardinals. And for general managers out there, well, this is an exciting time. You get to set the roster, and also it's some bad news you got to hand out to some players. Almost 40% of rosters will be told your time in the NFL is done, at least with us, and perhaps everywhere else, as well as the rosters need to be down to 53 by this weekend. And oh, by the way, there is a game on Thursday, one last opportunity for maybe about a dozen players to kind of squeeze their way, push that line in which they can get on that active roster and be available week 1.
Yeah, and the good news for some of these guys, now I know they want to make the 53-man roster, but at least 32 teams are going to bring 10 guys on the practice squad, and it's a great opportunity. You get to show up and practice every day. You get benefits. You're well paid. And, they're just a player or two away from, being active just because they've been in the system so long. So some of these guys are going to be disappointed. But the fact is you're going to have at least 32 teams bring back 10 guys to the practice squad, and that's how you really fill out some of your guys that maybe you think are a year away from making the actual 53-man roster.
And from Thursday to Friday to Saturday, when you finally get notification, either good news or bad news, there's going to be some sleepless nights for a lot of players, not only with the Cardinals, but throughout the NFL. All right, let's take off on this Monday, get you set. What's ahead on the show today? Big focus, obviously, on preseason game number 3. The defense forced 8 turnovers. Patrick Peterson accounted for 2 of those, and we saw once again the speed and perhaps potential of running back TJ Logan. That's all ahead here on Cards Cover 2. We'll get you your social media questions as well. But the news of the day, and unfortunately it is not good news. Head coach Steve Wilks confirmed this afternoon that running back DJ Foster, the former Scottsdale Saguaro High standout and former ASU Sun Devil, tore both his ACL and MCL in his knee, and that means he is done for the season. Here is head coach Steve Wilks.
Well, just personally for him, really disappointed and saddened for him because he had a great training camp. He was performing well, doing some great things. Even on special teams, he was standing out there as well. Had some good runs last week, and it's a major hit to the room. Anytime you lose a guy, I think is disappointing, and the guys feel it as well. But we just got to be able to step up in that room and continue to move forward. I think Chase did some good things last night, and I'm very excited about that. But definitely unfortunate for DJ.
Yeah,
well, just personally for him.
Yeah, excuse me there. I was going to say, though, anytime you bring in a new coaching staff and a new position coach, you're wondering, how am I going to fit in? And he really excelled in off-season workouts. It carried over to training camp, carried over to the preseason games. And he's going to be missed because we talk about David Johnson, you throw in Chase Edmonds, and now a guy like Logan. It's all of a sudden you're missing one of your guys that was going to be active on game day. And one thing he probably doesn't get credit for when referring to Foster is he's a good special teams player. So you hate to see any injuries happen. Obviously a local guy. They went to ASU. They claimed him off the New England Patriots practice squad, brought him here. Hopefully, a speedy recovery for him. But definitely a guy that was going to make the roster. And now all of a sudden you wonder, where's it opening up? Based on maybe keeping a couple fullbacks on a 53-man roster.
And when he was carted off the field, head down, much like A.Q. Shipley when he was carted off into the locker room at the red-white practice, I'm sure he knew immediately the injury happened on special teams. And what was interesting about the play, and I still have not seen a great vantage point or highlight because it was a touchback. It was a kickoff coverage, and the ball went into the end zone, yet all of a sudden they panned back, and there's 37 lying on the ground, and it just did not look good the way he was holding the knee. And then, of course, it was confirmed an MRI showed both a torn ACL and MCL and the knee. Other injury notes, according to head coach Steve Wilkes, defensive end Arthur Mote suffered a sprained MCL in his knee. That's expected to sideline him 2 to 4 weeks. And cornerback Brandon Williams, who did not play, is dealing with an ankle injury. Coach did mention that he would hope that Williams plays on Thursday. Let's be honest, Mike, he needs to play on Thursday, but Brandon Williams is running out of time.
Yeah, and he missed a couple practices last week. He was in street clothes, so he wasn't even in uniform. And listen, time is ticking, and I believe the Cardinals will still try to address that corner position opposite, of Patrick Peterson. You start looking at the top 3 guys, Peterson, Taylor, and Ben Wickery, and then I think it's wide open. So Brandon Williams is a good special teams player, but you got to do more when you're a backup. So if there's somebody else out there that is either equal, if not greater, as a corner, it can also play on teams. I do think his days could be numbered.
Josh Rosen also did not play on Sunday. He did participate in warm-ups, though that was more of a precautionary move not to have him play in the game. Remember, he banged his thumb on his throwing hand on a helmet in practice. And now the question is, what happens to Rosen? Have we seen the end of him here in the preseason? There is, as I mentioned, the preseason finale on Thursday against Denver. Coach Wilkes asked about Rosen and his status for Thursday.
Health is one, and then also just his ability to make sure he keeps his timing, and those kind of things as well. We want to make sure that, he has an opportunity to go out there and keep the mechanics and the things that we've expressed throughout training camp and the things that he's built upon so far. I don't want him to lose that. So I'm still debating right now whether or not he's going to play, and if he does, how much.
Now, Rosen was out there in pregame warmups. He was throwing the football. He wanted to play. Obviously, you got to rely on your medical staff, and the head coach got to make the right decision, take it out of the player's hands. I was a little disappointed because he's only played in 45 preseason snaps. Now, the other side of the coin would be you want to be cautious with this guy. You want to make sure, because we know if something happens to Bradford, he's going to be your first option, you would think. And the fact is, it allowed Mike Glennon to get some playing time. I know Cardinal fans are thinking, well, he could be the third-string quarterback. But, again, Glennon does have some experience. I'm sure that, he wanted to recoup himself from throwing that interception in a previous preseason game. So one part of me wanted Josh to be out there, because the next time, if he doesn't play Thursday night, Craig, the next time he could play is in a real NFL game. So he's had over 2,000 snaps in off-season workouts, training camp, and preseason games. So it's not like he hasn't been working with the first string. But it allowed Mike Glennon to get in there, because in this day and age, last year the Cardinals did play 3 quarterbacks.
And it would not surprise me if Rosen did play a series. And I mentioned this on Cardinal Talk after the victory over the Cowboys on Sunday. Just as you heard Coach mention, the timing, the mechanics, so he doesn't go another full week without any game reps. It wouldn't be very long. It would just basically get your feet wet, maybe even a play or two, depending on how that offensive line looks in that first series. But probably not, though wouldn't be a shock to me if we did see the rookie quarterback out there at least for a series or two. All right, let's go back to Sunday for those that might have missed it. A recap of the Cardinals-Cowboys game. Again, final score from AT&T Stadium, 27-3, and this is going to be a lot of fun because it started early and then often. 2 muffed punts. This first one, Dennis Gardeck with the recovery, and for whatever reason, the Cowboys, MJ, had all kinds of trouble fielding punts.
Yeah, you don't want to be in that special teams meeting today. Byron Jones, who's a defensive back, also plays on teams. He runs right into his own teammate. The Cardinals were well aware. Dennis Gardeck is a guy, if he makes the roster, it's going to be because of special teams.
And then the second one, once again, a muffed punt. Rudy Ford streaking down the middle of the field as the ball goes into the end zone, and it might have been knocked around, and then Johnny on the spot, Trent Sherfield, up with the football and the touchdown. By the way, it was also number 16 on the first muff punt who was in the area as well, and you can better believe that coaches recognize that when they go back on film.
Yeah, and you look at Rudy Ford. I mean, this guy is going to be a special teams demon. You pointed it out. Look at that speed right there. And Trent Sherfield, yes, he's in the rotation at wide receiver, but he's another guy that plays on special teams, and we know if you're not a starter, you got to play on teams.
Then it was the defense's turn. Patrick Peterson reading it all the way. The pick six goes
little
30
high
yards
step in there
into the end zone. showcasing his Deion Sanders talents, and 21 has the interception, matching his entire total from all of last season as that football he saw it before the receiver did.
This is just a young quarterback that isn't aware of Patrick Peterson. Sure, he's trying to make a play. You could see Peterson read it right from the get-go, jumped the route, touchdown.
And then once again, Peterson in the mix, this time forcing the fumble that Josh Bynes would fall on. This is turnover number 2 for those keeping track. Again, we've got to get to 8, so we are 2 of 8 so far. And then the offense, there wasn't a lot, but we did see a huge run, 28 yards by Chase Edmonds, who got the start. Remember, David Johnson did not play in this ball game. Larry Fitzgerald sat on the sidelines as well, but good to see Edmonds running up the middle. And then time for the defense once again, right before the end of the first half. Budda Baker with the interception in the end zone.
He had great position. He was inside the receiver. If he's on the outside, that's a touchdown. He's on the inside. He makes the play, returns it out of the end zone.
And, of course, we're expecting big things out of Baker this season, filling in, replacing, I should say, Tyrann Mathieu. But once again, running the route better than the receiver. Offensively, the one touchdown of the game. This is TJ Logan up the middle. Great blocking. Elijah Penny opening up the hole and springing Logan free for 59 yards and a score. At that point, it's 24-0 in favor of the Cardinals.
And again, Logan had the fastest running back time at the combine. I think he showed his speed there.
Defense, though, we talked about the turnovers. Well, here's another one. Gerald Hodges comes up with the forced fumble, and it is Rudy Ford comes down with the football, but Hodges certainly has impressed in very limited time wearing a Cardinals uniform.
Kind of reminds me when they brought in Josh Bynes right now. I would say Hodges, based on what he's done in practice and what he's done in a preseason game, he could be one of your inside linebackers providing depth.
And here is, you've dubbed him Mr. August, Cappy with the strip sack and fumble recovery. I don't know, this is what, 13 preseason snacks or whatever it is, but Cappy certainly coming
Great
off the
move
edge,
right
looks
here.
good.
A little bit of a Chandler Jones, that little swim move he got around the left tackle there, and there he is. And the Cardinals retained possession on that play.
7 turnovers, and now number 8, just for good measure. Travell Dixon, playing center field, comes up with the INT, and that is 8 interceptions for the Cardinals defense as they posed after as well. I think it was Patrick Peterson taking the picture on the sideline.
Now, did you see how many guys were actually around that football? It wasn't just one guy.
Matt McCrane adding the cherry on top for the Cardinals, 27-0. McCrane, a 53-yard field goal. That would have been good for maybe 57. And this piggybacking after the 53-yard field goal he had last week in New Orleans.
Yeah, he's got a young, fresh leg. I mean, he's definitely doing everything his part to try to earn a roster spot. We'll get into that a little bit later in the show because you got a guy like Phil Dawson who's been in the league 20 years. But, hey, competition's great at every single position.
Again, 27-3 the final, all positives. There were some negatives. We'll get into that, but a lot to like if you're head coach Steve Wilkes as he addressed the team in the locker room afterwards.
Hell of a job right there, okay? Got to improve a little bit on third down, all right? Got to make sure right now we cut down the penalties. But this was a team victory right here. Special teams. 2 turnovers and a score. Yes, sir. Hell of a job. Let's keep building, all right? And most important, let's finish next week at home, all right? Protect the nets. Break it down, baby. Let's go. Hey, Travis Sweat's on the way back.
Let's go. Hey, Cardinals on 3. 1, 2, 3. Cardinals.
Chandler Jones breaking the team down in the locker room. Exclusive access courtesy azcardinals.com. Steve Wilkes with the post-game locker room speech as we welcome you in here on Cards Cover 2 with you Monday, Wednesday, and Friday 3 times a week, every day at 3 p.m. Of course, if you miss us here, download it as a podcast via Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, SoundCloud, or tune in. And, of course, we'll get to your social media questions later on in the show. Hashtag CardsCover2, hashtag CardsCover2 using the number 2. All right, the biggest takeaway of Sunday's game is the takeaways. 8 of them, 16, Mike, now through the preseason as this team is plus 15 in turnover margin.
Yeah, 6 interceptions and 10 forced fumbles. I mean, this team, And again, it may be an anomaly, and these things usually come in bunches, and hopefully some of this can carry over to the regular season because that's where it really counts. But this is things that we watched in practice. I mean, attack the ball, corners that actually tackle, swarm the ball, gang tackling, strip the ball when a guy catches it. Don't just accept the reception and let him get yards after catch. Come in and try to jar it out of his hands. And this is stuff they practice, so it's not, I mean, again, to have that many in 3 preseason games, the records is 17 by the Buccaneers, and they had that outstanding defense. They ended up finishing 10-6 that year, the Bucs. But for the most part, though, this is what they preach in practice, and you're starting to see the dividends during these preseason games. It has to carry over to the regular season. It's going to be hard to duplicate these numbers.
Quoting Trey Boston after the ball game, this is what we call the standard. Of course, it's going to be difficult to get that many turnovers in a regular season contest, but the Cardinals had 4 players produce a 90.0 grade or better, according to Pro Football Focus, none higher than Patrick Peterson, who finished with 95.8. And this in itself is a story, what we're seeing from Peterson, not only the pick 6, but the forced fumble. The fact that he is much more physical than I think we've seen him over the past, well, let's be honest, since he's entered the league.
Yeah, I mean, I asked Steve Wilkes during his press conference today, what was that conversation like when you went to Patrick and said, yeah, you're a great player, but you can be an unbelievable player, an all-around player?
No, honestly, this is what I envision. It's what I've been, what I've been talking about, the whole spring up until this point. This defense is really opportunist. Like is really set up for us to make plays at any position, from the linebacker position, from the front 4 to the back 7. And we're out and we're flying around. We're playing fast football. We're playing together, communicating. We're all on one accord, so it's fun to see us, fly around and play the type of football that we're capable of playing. I think there's always room for improvement. Don't make no mistake about it. There's obviously some things we still want to clean up. We have to look at the tape, but for the most part, I thought the energy was there. Obviously, productivity was there, and just the overall passion and speed that we played with, it was unmatched. What's going through my mind is, first of all, catch it.
Don't drop it.
Yeah, don't drop it, and after that, just get into the end zone. It was pretty much open for me. Obviously, you guys saw me held the ball high at the 20-yard line, so I knew no one was going to catch me. Took a quick peek at the jumbo screen, but it's always fun to make plays, with your teammates, in front of a live audience as well. Playing in front of a Sunday night crowd, being on NBC. So we just want to continue building as a team, as a defense, and hopefully it should carry over into the regular season. That's what we practice for, to be able to have these type team victories. And sometimes it may be the offense that won it for us, sometimes it may be the special team, sometimes it may be the defense. But today, it was definitely a collective collective win.
Now, I'll say this. I mean, we also got a chance to see him blitz off the edge, okay? We've seen that in practice. We've seen that now in preseason games, and it's on film. And what did I tell you when we're watching the game? The Redskins are going to have to key for that, because all of a sudden, if you're Alex Smith, here's this corner that we're not going to target on, at least based on who he's covering. So, again, Patrick Peterson, the fact that he's been to the Pro Bowl every single year, the first year was for special teams because he had 4 punt returns for touchdowns. The next, 6 years have been because of a corner, but he doesn't get targeted in the touches. You're going to see him more involved in his defense, and it's about being physical at the point of attack, and you're going to see him, if somebody wants to take their chances to throw to him, because some quarterbacks have an ego where, listen, we're not going to play just one side of the field. We're going to attack him. Well, you better be careful, because he's going to have help behind, and he can cover any wide receiver one-on-one. So I'm looking forward to big things. He's already been a great player. He can even be better under Steve Wilkes in this defense.
Well, he's talked about playing up on the line of scrimmage, bump and run, and then also more playing back and giving that cushion, which sometimes he hasn't always done in the past, to kind of give the illusion that the wide receiver has more space to kind of bait that quarterback. But you're certainly, if you're Patrick Peterson, you want to be more involved. We've heard that since head coach Steve Wilkes arrived and defensive coordinator Al Holcomb. They want 21 to be more a focal point. And when I say that, as far as being more active, not just shutting down one half of the field, and the opposing quarterback just going to the left side of the field or to the right side of the field every single time throughout the game.
Yeah, and it's not like, teams are going to just throw an out pass because that's hard to defend. But if you're on press coverage, meaning you're at the line of scrimmage, you can go, hip to hip. They took a shot down the field, and he had great coverage there too. Was an incomplete pass. So when you start at that standpoint, it's not only that he's going to do things, but if he has to cover down the field, we know he's capable of making an interception and possibly returning it for a pick six.
The other defensive players who graded out well, according to Pro Football Focus, Vontarius Dora, who had 3 sacks, Dale Buchanan, a team-high 8 tackles, Cap Cappy, who we chronicled as far as the strip sack, and Budda Baker as well. He had the interception in the end zone. Let's hear from Baker after the ball game.
You can get turnovers, it's always good. So I'm very excited and just get this next preseason game done with and then start the season.
I had talked this week about the scheme allowing you guys to see better. Maybe, playing off and really, is tonight evidence of that?
Yeah, you would say that, especially for Pat. He's been playing man-to-man almost his whole career in the NFL, and now that he can have zone eyes, see what the quarterback is doing, he's jumping routes and making plays. So I'm very excited for what this defense can do during the season. Every day we hear takeaways, strip the ball out, punch the ball out. Anytime, they always talk about production is at the ball. So as long as we can make turnovers, we feel like we have a good chance. Today we're really focused on gap integrity and hold the offenses to under 100 yards. And I don't know if they got 100, but that was our goal going into this game.
Well, let's piggyback on that end. He talked about gap integrity, and that's all we talked about last week, MJ, was gap integrity, gap discipline. You got to be making sure you're in your right spots as far as being able to defend the run. And yeah, I know Ezekiel Elliott did not play, but the Cowboys only rushed for 52 yards, something that this Cardinals defense can hang their hat on moving forward into the regular season.
Yeah, and they played a lot of nickel defense pretty much the entire first half with the first unit, and a lot of people were wondering where was Hassan Reddick. Now, he was playing in the fourth quarter, and people are like, why is he playing in the fourth quarter? Well, they want to get his rep total up before the regular season starts. But you start looking at, the 4 top safeties. You look at the 3 Bs, Bethea, Boston, and Baker, and then you throw in Rudy Ford, and you could just see the speed and athleticism that he has. And then you look at the top 3 corners right now between Peterson, Taylor, and Ben Wickery. All of a sudden, people aren't talking about this, but the defense, we know it all starts up front with the pass rush and stopping the run. That's number 1. Then they got linebackers in Bynes and Buchanan and Reddick that can go from sideline to sideline. But I think the secondary now could be one of the strengths, and it's going to be difficult for opposing quarterbacks to hold that ball and try to make a completion if they're getting pressure from the front 7.
Well, on that front 7 on Sunday, recorded a total of 5 sacks. Dora had 3 of them. Cap Cappy had the strip sack, and then we saw Dale Buchanan get one as well. And yeah, sacks are nice, but it's the pressures, it's the hits just to knock the quarterback off their spot so they don't get comfortable in the pocket.
Well, you know how I feel. Hurries, pressures, and knockdowns, they lead to turnovers. It's great to get a sack and force them to punt, but if you can put pressure on the quarterback, whether it's, hit him as he's throwing the ball, that's going to lead to turnovers. Now, the key here is, though, you mentioned their rush total, and I know Elliott didn't play. They had 3 defensive tackles out, Peters, Kemdici, and Pierre. So it was allowing other guys to step up. But I really like the fact that when Hodges got in the game, he was good in run support. I think he's a guy that could make the roster. Just reminds of Josh Bynes last year when he got here a little bit late and he became a vital role along with Carlos Dansby. So I like this defense until we find out the identity of the offense. And I think we know what it's going to be. It's going to be a run the ball first, ball control. Obviously you're going to have to go on some long drives, but if this defense can carry these guys until they find their identity and they can force turnovers and get them out on 3 and out, I think it's going to be very encouraging. Complementary football. The defense helps the offense. The offense can score points.
Buchanan, by the way, that was his preseason debut, and after missing so much time after hurting his knee in the red-white practice in early August, all he did was come up with 8 tackles, a quarterback sack, a quarterback hit.
Rust?
Yeah, it certainly did not look like it. He looked like a man possessed out on the field on Sunday night. But the defense overall, the turnovers, the sacks, just the overall play, something that head coach Steve Wilks wants to see now come the regular season.
I think is really the standard that we've set. It's what we emphasize and is what we teach and what we preach as coaches. Taking the ball away, we create drills for that. Coach Holcomb and the defensive staff work on that daily. The things that we do during practice, picking up loose balls, and when we do get an interception, it's the mindset of scoring. So you see guys run all the way to the end zone. And I just finished showing the team the interception that Patrick had, and I backed it with the interception that he had in practice on the exact same sideline. So, I always say in order to do something in the game, you got to first do it in practice. And this guy's practicing at a high level, very talented, as we all know. We know what he can do. But his attention to detail, he's loving football right now. He's really taking command of that room, being a leader on the defensive side of the ball. So I'm excited about the things that he's doing.
A lot to like so far from this Cardinals defense. Yes, it's preseason, but the regular season right around the corner. September 9th, week 1 against Washington. Also, good things happening in that Cardinals running backs room as well. David Johnson on the sideline Sunday, that opened up the door for Chase Edmonds to get his first NFL start. He produced, and we also saw TJ Logan produce as well, getting good blocking up front, but it also takes a running back to find those lanes, and both Edmonds and Logan doing a great job of that.
Yeah, and they got a great burst. But at the same time, though, you start looking at the interior line, okay? We know that Mason Cole's a rookie, but he's passed the eye test. You throw in Upati the way he's played, and then Justin Pugh. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I really like the interior. Now, DJ Humphries, obviously going against a really good Randy Gregory, but the fact is these running backs, they got holes to run through. And you get to that second layer, now you're putting on the speed that Logan has and Edmonds has, and they're able to break tackles. So I'm really intrigued with this interior offensive line where these guys are running through big holes, and then you get to the second layer, and somebody's got to catch you, and it's not going to be a linebacker.
Well, and you're getting fullback blocking as well. Elijah Penny helped Logan to that 59-yard run and then almost caught up to Logan down the right sideline. It was fun to see overall. Chase Edmonds, 11 carries, 55 yards. TJ Logan, 6 carries, 86 yards, and a touchdown. Overall, the Cardinals accounted for 146 yards on the ground. All smiles after the game, TJ Logan in the locker room.
Eli Penny did a great job opening up for me. I just cut off of him and just tried to finish. Try not to get caught, to be honest with you.
When you get in the open field, do you ever feel like you're going to get caught?
Not really, to be honest with you. I stumbled a little bit, and I wasn't able to look up and see the scoreboard of the guys behind me. So I just I got to press and just try to make a move.
There's a commitment to the run already. You can see with the offense, I'm guessing, right?
Yeah, definitely. Coach McCoy always preaches that we want to come out and run the ball, make the defense sucker up or try to come up and make plays. And that's exactly what we've been doing, sticking to the run and just trying to pound it down their throats.
You guys break the huddle with a fullback. Do you like that?
Oh, definitely. Especially when you got Eli or DC in front of you, just opening up holes and just cutting off of guys. O-line did a great job tonight, and we were trying to get up 100 yards rushing, and that's exactly what we did.
What goes through your mind when you see it open up like that and you know this is you?
Just don't get caught, man. You don't want to be that guy on TV that gets caught. And I seen the safety, and I just try to make him miss. He nicked me up a little bit. I stumbled, but I just try to stay on my feet and make a play. It's a long season. God forbid Davis gets banged up, but we just know it's a very long season. So whenever our numbers are called, me and Chase, we're just going to try to come in and just make something happen for the team.
You know what's mind-boggling? The fullback, Elijah Penny, that was the lead blocker there. Derek Coleman on third down. Nobody in the building thought he was going to get the ball. First down. It's mind-boggling they didn't have a fullback in the offense for 5 years. Now, granted, 50 wins in 5 years is nothing to slouch about. But having that fullback has made a difference when it comes to the blocking up front. These guys they're getting to the second layer. We didn't see that last year.
Just make sure Ron Wolfley doesn't get a hold of that right there, that dissertation by Mike Jurecki, because we know what Wolfley feels about the fullback as a former fullback himself. He loves when he sees number 48 or 35 in the ball game, referring to Derek Coleman and Elijah Penny.
They're football players.
I understand that. It's just, and I'll say this. it is a position that is coming back. More and more teams, and I don't know if it's because there's the quality of quarterback play has dropped, so now you got to find a running back that can do a little bit more as far as eat up yards to move up and down the field to try to get into scoring position, and you need that extra blocker.
Listen, the 12 teams that made the playoffs last year, right? 11 led the league in rushing, or they're in the top 15. Pittsburgh was ranked 20th. Run the football, okay? Time of possession. Now, I'm not a big time of possession guy. It's what you do when you get into the red zone. You score points, don't kick field goals. It's gonna allow your defense to be fresh on this. It's a downward spiral effect. It's across the board. Special teams when it comes to field position. So this is something different, completely different than what we've had in the last 5 years. And I like the fact that Mike McCoy is going to say, listen, we're going to use 2 tight end sets. We're going to bring in an extra blocker on the outside of the line to help an Andre Smith or DJ Humphries. We're going to use the fullback. We're going to use 2 back sets where one's going to go out in motion, possibly as a wide receiver. So this is completely different than what we've had for the last 5 years, and you're starting to see some of the payoff.
Craig Grialou, Mike Jurecki here on Cards Cover 2 with you Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 3 p.m. You can watch it live on azcardinals.com/live video. Also on YouTube, you can find us by searching Cards Cover 2. And, of course, if you miss a show or just want to replay a show and all the information, download it as a podcast via Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, SoundCloud, or TuneIn. We invite your questions, your comments via social media using the hashtag CardsCover2. Hashtag CardsCover2 using the number 2. We'll get into those in just a moment here. As well as the team is running the football, there has been a little bit of a dip, especially on Sunday night against the Dallas Cowboys in the quarterback play. Sam Bradford only a couple of series, completed 1 ball on 4 attempts for 6 yards. Mike Glennon was 8 of 10 for 35 yards, and Charles Knopf 4 of 10 for 27 yards. Did not get much help from the wide receivers. We'll get into that in just a moment, but I mentioned Bradford and the 2 series. In fact, if it wasn't the first drop back, it might have been, I think it was the first drop back. He actually got sacked by Randy Gregory, something that we've all been kind of wondering what would happen if. Well, the good news is Bradford got hit, got up, he continued. Head coach Steve Wilks asked about that earlier on Monday.
Josh, no, and I expressed that last night because I understand it's part of football, but I am happy that he came out healthy. And I think, you have to ask him this, but I think that he feels good about it now, not about the sack itself, but just actually getting hit and then being able to get back up. I think you get the jitters out.
We always heard about Carson Palmer saying he wanted that first hit just to make sure the body learned how to recover. Now, Bradford didn't go that far, but he did mention before that game that he wanted to kind of feel the action around his feet. Well, he felt it with Gregory bearing down on him and planting him into the ground. Now the question is, how does he feel on Monday and then Tuesday? Now, he doesn't have to worry about Thursday's game, but and what Wilkes said, I think, is a fair point, just to figure out that first hit, it knocks you loose a little bit, maybe stuns you, and then you're like, okay, I understand what football is all about. I'm going to get hit. I'm ready for week 1.
Yeah, and in case you missed it last night, Paul Calvisi has a chance to interview the head coach after every game, and we were listening, and Paul did ask, were you holding your breath? And he said, yeah, it's just because, we know that they've really tried to have a schedule for Bradford. He's not going to get a hit in practice, and they were hoping that, it's going to happen at some point. And today he said, well, listen, it's just part of the process here. But the fact is that Sam got right up. He's feeling fine today, according to Wilkes. And so now you go from here, and we're not going to see him on Thursday night. Now, it's not all perfect on offense. 3rd down conversions, okay? Yeah, it's great that you have Andy Lee, and special teams is vastly improved, but you can't rely on that all the time. You're going against different teams. They're 7 for 38 in 3 preseason games. They were 0 for 11 in the first one against the Chargers. Last couple of weeks, that's got to get better. You want to extend drives, and we know that this team is going to be throwing the ball down the field, so you're going to have to dink and dunk and try to win the line of scrimmage, and then maybe we'll see some guys get yards after catch, but they got to improve on that. Now, I thought they improved. Dallas wasn't great on 3rd down. I think they were, 6 for 13 maybe. But for the most part, the Cardinals have to improve on that. You want to extend drives. You don't want to be 3 and out where you're forcing your defense to be on the field a lot longer than they need to be.
Yeah, just 2 of 13 on third down, with one of those third down converted by Derek Coleman, rushing for the 3 yards on 3rd and 1. Now, it's, again, there's no Larry Fitzgerald, there's no David Johnson. You're not really game planning, so you would expect those numbers to improve once we hit the regular season. On the flip side, there were a lot of drives that could have been much better if the wide receivers had maintained possession of the football. Too many drops. Coach Wilkes, after the ball game, talked about it. Monday, meeting the media, talked about it. J.J. Nelson had a couple. Christian Kirk had one. Bryce Butler and Greg Little, 2 players that are on the fringe of making this roster. No one flashed. And we were talking about this preparing for the show. As good as I felt about the wide receiver room, at least the top 3 after the Saints game, that's all gone. I mean, I know who's number 2, the 1, 2, and 3 are, but there is still a huge question mark, 4, 5, if you keep a 6.
Yeah, I mean, it's safe to say right now, Fitz, Williams, Kirk, and we could sit here and debate who number 4 is. I'll tell you the guy that I think is number 4, and I don't even know if he's going to be active on game day if you keep 6. That's Trent Sherfield. We've seen inconsistencies from Bryce Butler, J.J. Nelson, and then Greg Little. Too many drops. Too many drops. Now, I know that it's different with different quarterbacks. They throw the ball a little bit different, but they've practiced enough with these guys in practice. So I think that's a position that Steve Keim in the front office will consider. Now, the only problem with that is if you claim someone, you got to put them on your 53, and we know how this difficult that wide receiver position is to learn. You got to learn all 3 positions. This doesn't matter if you line up on the outside, inside, or in the slot. You have to learn all of them at different times. So easier said than done. But I think based on what's transpired over the last couple of weeks, the inconsistency at the position and the drops, they definitely are going to take a look at the waiver wire. And right now, I think the top 4 guys, as I mentioned, Fitz, Williams, Kirk, and I'm going to throw Sherfield in there because of what he does on special teams.
Well, and we saw it as far as he was involved in both of the muff punts on Sunday. One that Gardeck recovered, and then the other one that he recovered in the end zone for a touchdown. So you factor in his wide receiver skills plus special teams. Yeah, he's worthy of being on this roster right now. And I'm sure that Bryce Butler, who was brought in as a free agent in the offseason, was not expecting to be playing and available on Thursday. He's playing on Thursday if I'm the Arizona Cardinals because I haven't seen enough out of him.
No, and he's missed a lot of time, and, obviously he's dealing with a threshold of pain. It's at the bottom of his foot, and so I want to give him credit for trying, but he knows what's at stake right here, just like Greg Little and J.J. Nelson. I want to see all 3 of these guys play in the first half.
One of the things that Coach Wilkes mentioned on Monday, he was asked specifically about the 53-man roster and how much of it is set, and he said none. And there was a long pause, and he continued that he and General Manager Steve Keim, they have yet to talk about that specifically as far as, how many running backs we keep and how many wide receivers, corners, safeties. Those discussions, I'm sure, are happening maybe in individual rooms, but not the big picture, the around the table, if you will. That probably won't happen until Thursday night into Friday morning.
Yeah, I can appreciate that, but I think if we look at the 2 deep depth chart, not the one that's posted, just because that's in crayon. It will make more sense when we get to the regular season. I still think there's probably 8 to 12 possible jobs. And again, now DJ Foster's out for the season, so does that mean they keep 5 running backs? Do they keep 6? What happens at wide receiver? Do they feel like there's 5 guys worthy of keeping on the roster? Do they keep 6? So I think numbers-wise, that part will take place right after the game, early Friday morning when you start look. Every position coach is going to go in there and say, I like this guy. I think we should do this. And then ultimately, Steve Wilkes and Steve Keim will have to make the decision. Keim's in charge of the 53-man roster, along with input from the coaching staff, including the head coach. Steve Wilkes is in charge of who dresses on game day.
And the Cardinals brass are basically running out of time as far as how often they can evaluate these players. Yes, there's meeting rooms, but one more day of practice on Tuesday and then the game on Thursday against the Denver Broncos. By the way, that will kick off at 7 p.m. at University of Phoenix Stadium. That means a 3:30 start time as far as the pregame coverage begins on the Arizona Cardinals radio network.
And it's already been announced from Vance Joseph, the head coach of the Broncos, 22 Broncos will not play. Deja vu to the last couple of years. And curious to see on the Cardinals side. And Chad Kelly, Mr. Irrelevant, who had some injuries in college, had some off-the-field issues, the nephew of Jim Kelly, he is going to start for the Denver Broncos. Likely will play the first half, and then Paxton Lynch will likely play the second half.
Yeah, Lynch has certainly fallen very, very far on that depth chart with the Denver Broncos, former first-round draft pick, and now all of a sudden mop-up duty on the preseason finale in the second half.
Not good, and if you're John Elway, I know he's Teflon up there, but he's got to get that quarterback position figured out. Maybe Case Keenum is the answer.
We asked, you responded. Bird Gang sound off as we get to your social media questions using the hashtag CardsCovered2. Hashtag CardsCovered2 using the number 2 via Twitter. We've got one question wanting to know, and this is from Adam_P_Curry. What are the snap counts for Chad Williams and Christian Kirk versus the Cowboys? They both look good against the Saints, but were no-shows this week, hoping they were just held out.
Well, they didn't get as much playing time as they did in the previous game, and they didn't get targeted. Now, Kirk should have caught that ball. I know it was low, but usually when you get your hands on it, you got to catch it. I don't think we're concerned with Christian Kirk and Chad Williams. Again, they're young. They still are in the learning process, growing pains for the most part, but I can rely on those guys to at least catch the ball. Hopefully it happens when the big lights are on.
Also from Twitter, and this is a question that we got actually early on in the postgame show on Cardinal Talk, and that is Matt McCrane versus Phil Dawson. Can the rookie beat out the veteran?
I don't think so. I mean, the Cardinals, I anticipate they're going to be in a lot of close games this year. He's got 20 years of experience. I think Matt McCrane has done well, 53 and a 54-yard. He's never made a pressure kick in the NFL. That's the difference.
And I know Dawson missed another field goal from 55 yards out on Sunday, but as I mentioned on Cardinal Talk, if we're having this discussion week 3, week 4,
that's different.
Then perhaps. But right now I feel much better with a veteran kicker in week 1. Last from Twitter, does Elijah Penny now make the 53 since Foster is out with the ACL tear?
I definitely think it opens the door for him. He's a good special teams player. You got a chance to see him block on the long TJ Logan run, so I think it's feasible. And if anything happens to Derek Coleman, you got Elijah Penny as a backup.
Now from Instagram, got a couple of questions. One, wanting to know about Cap Cappy.
Cap Cappy obviously has a nose to get to the quarterback. He's got to become a better all-around player, stopping the run and obviously staying in his gap control. But, hey, there's always a premium on pass rushers. I just think he's got to do a little bit more if he wants to be on the 53-man roster.
And still much of his production is done in the second half, fourth quarter, late in games when you're talking about third and fourth string offensive line. Certainly would like to see him against better competition, but so far, I mean, that's kind of the underlying on how, if you dig through those sack totals.
Yeah, but in fairness to him, that's where they're going to play him.
True.
You got to shine, and now he's on film for 31 other teams. Last year, the Cardinals let him go. The Giants put him on the practice squad, played 4 games with the Giants, 4 with the Bills, and here he's back with Arizona.
Last question, this also from Instagram. Could you see the Cardinals bring in another veteran wide receiver? And they specifically mentioned Des Bryant.
No to Des Bryant. No to Kenny Britt. I believe they will look at some wide receivers based on the waiver wire. Curious to see what names pop up. Is it a veteran guy? Is it a guy maybe that lost out to a younger player who has more upside? But no to Des Bryant. No to Kenny Britt.
Cards Covered 2, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 3 p.m. You can watch live on azcardinals.com/live video. Also find us on YouTube. Search Cards Covered 2. And, of course, downloadable as a podcast via Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, SoundCloud, or TuneIn. That's going to wrap up this edition here on a Monday. Special thanks to Tim Delaney, Jim Alejandro, Devin Henry, Jeremy Schnell, plus Grant Greeley, Jonathan Hayward, Brandon Natus, and Jackson Sipes. For Mike Jurecki, I'm Craig Grialou. It's Cards Covered 2, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Get those questions in, hashtag Cards Covered 2, and we'll talk to you on Wednesday.